Mansa Musa, the 14th-century ruler of the Mali Empire, is one of the most iconic figures in world history, renowned for his unparalleled wealth, visionary leadership, and transformative impact on West Africa and beyond. His reign, from approximately 1312 to 1337 CE, marked the zenith of the Mali Empire's power, prosperity, and cultural influence. This comprehensive biography delves into every facet of his life, from his obscure early years to his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca, his contributions to governance, economy, education, and architecture, and his enduring legacy in global history. Birth and ancestry. Mansa Musa, born around 1280 CE, was a member of the Keita dynasty, the ruling family of the Mali Empire. His full name, Kankan Musa Keita, reflects his Mandinka heritage, with Mansa meaning king or emperor in the Mandinka language. The Keita dynasty traced its lineage to Sundiata Keita, the legendary founder of the Mali Empire in the early 13th century, who unified the Mandinka people and established Mali as a regional power. Little is known about Musa's childhood or upbringing, as historical records from the period focus primarily on his reign. He was likely born in the imperial capital of Niani, a bustling city along the Niger River. As a prince of the Keita dynasty, Musa would have been groomed for leadership, receiving education in Islamic teachings, governance, and the intricacies of Mali's trade-based economy. The Mali Empire before Musa. To understand Musa's significance, it's essential to contextualize the Mali Empire he inherited. Founded in the 1230s by Sundiata Keita, Mali emerged from the collapse of the Ghana Empire and rapidly grew into one of West Africa's most powerful states. By the early 14th century, Mali controlled vast territories, stretching from the Atlantic coast in the west to the Songhai regions in the east, encompassing modern-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, and parts of Mauritania and Niger. Mali's wealth stemmed from its control of trans-Saharan trade routes, which connected West Africa to North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. The empire's gold mines, particularly in the Bambuk and Bure regions, supplied much of the world's gold during the Middle Ages. Salt, mined in the Sahara, was another critical commodity, traded alongside ivory, cola nuts, and enslaved people. Cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen became thriving commercial and cultural hubs, attracting merchants, scholars, and travelers from across the Islamic world. Ascension to the throne. Mansa Musa ascended to the throne in 1312 CE under unusual circumstances. His predecessor, Mansa Abubakar II, reportedly abdicated to lead an ambitious expedition across the Atlantic Ocean, seeking to explore uncharted lands. According to oral traditions recorded by griots, West African oral historians, Abubakar II sailed with a fleet of ships and never returned, leaving Musa, his deputy, to assume power. While the veracity of this story is debated, it underscores the Mali Empire's adventurous spirit and global curiosity during Musa's era. Musa's rise to power came at a time of relative stability, but he faced the challenge of maintaining Mali's dominance in a competitive region. Neighboring powers, such as the Songhai and Mossi kingdoms, posed military threats, while internal rivalries among the empire's noble families required careful diplomacy. Musa's ability to navigate these challenges would define his reign as one of the most successful in Mali's history. The legendary Hajj to Mecca, 1324 to 1325. Mansa Musa's most famous achievement was his extravagant pilgrimage, Hajj, to Mecca in 1324 to 1325, a journey that showcased his wealth, piety, and diplomatic acumen. As a devout Muslim, Musa undertook the Hajj to fulfill one of the 5 pillars of Islam, but the scale and impact of his pilgrimage were unprecedented, earning him a place in global history. The Caravan. Musa's entourage was a spectacle of grandeur, reportedly consisting of 60,000 people, including soldiers, attendants, scholars, griots, and enslaved individuals. The caravan included 80 to 100 camel loads of gold, each load weighing up to 300 pounds, along with vast quantities of supplies, textiles, and provisions. Musa's personal retinue featured heralds dressed in fine silks, carrying golden staffs, and musicians who performed to announce his arrival in each city. The caravan stretched for miles, moving slowly across the Sahara Desert from Mali to Cairo, then to Medina and Mecca. The journey, covering thousands of miles, was a logistical marvel, requiring careful planning to ensure the caravan's safety and sustenance in the harsh desert environment. Impact in Cairo. Musa's arrival in Cairo in July 1324 caused a sensation. As a gesture of generosity and diplomacy, he distributed gold to the poor, local rulers, and religious leaders. Arabic chronicler al-Umari, who documented the pilgrimage decades later, reported that Musa's spending was so lavish that it caused a devaluation of gold in Egypt for over a decade. The sudden influx of gold disrupted Cairo's economy, driving up prices and destabilizing markets. Musa's generosity was strategic as well as charitable. By showering gifts on the Mamluk Sultan of Egypt and other dignitaries, he secured alliances and ensured safe passage for his caravan. His interactions with Cairo's elite also facilitated trade agreements, strengthening Mali's economic ties with North Africa. The journey to Mecca. After leaving Cairo, Musa continued to Medina, where he visited the tomb of the Prophet Muhammad, before proceeding to Mecca to perform the rituals of the Hajj. His presence in the holy cities attracted attention from scholars and rulers across the Islamic world, who marveled at the wealth and sophistication of the Mali Empire. Musa's piety and humility during the pilgrimage earned him respect as a devout Muslim ruler, enhancing his reputation in the Dar al-Islam, the Islamic world. Return to Mali. On his return journey, Musa brought back scholars, architects, and artisans to Mali, enriching the empire's cultural and intellectual life. Among them was Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, a Granadan poet and architect who would later design some of Mali's most iconic buildings. Musa also purchased books, manuscripts, and religious texts, which laid the foundation for Timbuktu's rise as a center of learning. The Hajj had a profound impact on Musa himself. Exposure to the wider Islamic world broadened his vision for Mali, inspiring him to invest in education, architecture, and governance. However, the pilgrimage also strained Mali's treasury, as Musa reportedly borrowed money in Cairo to fund his return journey after giving away so much gold. Global recognition. Musa's Hajj introduced the Mali Empire to the world. European cartographers, previously unaware of Mali's significance, began depicting the empire on their maps. The 1375 Catalan Atlas, created by Abraham Cresques, famously portrayed Musa seated on a throne, holding a gold nugget and scepter, with a caption describing him as the richest and most noble lord of all this region, due to his abundant gold. This image cemented Musa's reputation as a symbol of African wealth and power. Governance and economic policies. Mansa Musa's reign was characterized by effective governance, economic prosperity, and strategic diplomacy, which solidified Mali's status as a regional superpower. Administrative structure. Musa governed a vast and diverse empire, encompassing numerous ethnic groups, including the Mandinka, Fulani, Tuareg, and Wolof. To maintain control, he relied on a decentralized system of provincial governors, known as Farba, who administered regions on his behalf. These governors, often members of the Keita dynasty or trusted allies, collected taxes, enforced laws, and maintained order. Musa's court in Niani was a center of political activity, where he consulted with advisors, griots, and religious leaders. Griots played a crucial role as oral historians, preserving the empire's history and legitimizing Musa's rule through their recitations of royal genealogies and epic tales. Musa implemented policies to protect trade routes, ensuring the safety of caravans crossing the Sahara. He maintained diplomatic relations with North African states, such as Morocco and Egypt, to facilitate commerce. Cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen flourished as entrepôts, where goods from West Africa were exchanged for Mediterranean products like glass, ceramics, and textiles. Musa's wealth was not merely personal but tied to his role as steward of the empire's resources. He used his fortune to fund public works, reward loyal subjects, and support religious institutions, reinforcing his legitimacy as a ruler. Military strength. Musa maintained a formidable army to defend Mali's borders and secure trade routes. The army, composed of infantry and cavalry, was equipped with iron weapons and armor, giving Mali a military edge over neighboring kingdoms. Musa's forces conducted campaigns to expand Mali's territory, notably annexing the city of Gao and parts of the Songhai region. While Musa was not primarily a warrior king, his military ensured the empire's stability, deterring invasions and suppressing rebellions. His diplomatic skills also helped avoid unnecessary conflicts, as he preferred negotiation and alliances over warfare. Cultural and intellectual contributions. Mansa Musa's patronage of education, religion, and the arts transformed Mali into a cultural and intellectual powerhouse, rivaling the great centers of the Islamic world. Promotion of Islam. As a devout Muslim, Musa made Islam the cornerstone of his reign, strengthening its influence in Mali. While Islam had been introduced to West Africa centuries earlier through trade, Musa's policies elevated its status as a state religion. He encouraged the construction of mosques and madrasas, where Islamic law, Sharia, and theology were taught. Musa's commitment to Islam did not erase Mali's indigenous traditions. Many Malians practiced a syncretic form of Islam, blending Islamic rituals with local beliefs. Musa tolerated this diversity, ensuring social cohesion in his multi-ethnic empire. Timbuktu as a center of learning. Under Musa's rule, Timbuktu emerged as one of the world's leading intellectual capitals. He funded the Sankor Madrasa, a university-like institution that attracted scholars from across Africa and the Middle East. Sankor's libraries housed tens of thousands of manuscripts, covering subjects like astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and literature. Timbuktu's scholars, known as ulama, played a key role in preserving and producing knowledge. The city's book trade was so vibrant that manuscripts were reportedly more valuable than gold. Musa's investment in education created a legacy that endured for centuries, as Timbuktu remained a beacon of scholarship until the 16th century. Architectural achievements. Musa's reign saw a boom in architectural innovation, driven by his wealth and exposure to foreign styles during his Hajj. He commissioned numerous mosques, palaces, and schools, many built in the Sudano-Sahelian style, characterized by mud brick construction, wooden scaffolding, and conical minarets. The Jingareba Mosque in Timbuktu, designed by Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, was one of Musa's most enduring legacies. Completed in 1327, the mosque could accommodate thousands of worshippers and became a symbol of Mali's wealth and piety. Al-Sahili also designed the royal palace in Niani and other structures, introducing North African and Andalusian influences to Malian architecture. Musa's buildings were not just functional but also served as propaganda, showcasing the empire's power and sophistication. The use of gold and decorative elements, such as domes and doors, reinforced Musa's image as a ruler of unparalleled wealth. Wealth and economic impact. Estimating Musa's wealth. Mansa Musa is often described as the wealthiest person in history, with his fortune estimated in modern terms to be worth $400 to $500 billion or more. Unlike modern billionaires, whose wealth is tied to stocks or assets, Musa's fortune was derived from Mali's gold and salt mines, which he controlled as emperor. His wealth was so vast that contemporary chroniclers struggled to quantify it, with al-Umari noting that Musa's gold was inexhaustible. Musa's wealth was not static but circulated through his empire, funding infrastructure, charity, and diplomacy. His lavish spending during the Hajj, while disruptive to foreign economies, demonstrated his ability to wield wealth as a tool of soft power. Economic influence. Mali's gold shaped the global economy during the Middle Ages. Much of the gold circulating in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East originated in Mali, fueling coinage and trade. Musa's reign coincided with a period of economic growth in the Mediterranean, as Mali's gold helped stabilize currencies like the Venetian ducat and the Egyptian dinar. Musa's economic policies also had a local impact. By investing in agriculture, particularly along the Niger River, he ensured food security for Mali's growing population. Irrigation projects and land grants to farmers boosted productivity, while taxes on trade provided revenue for the state. Death and succession. Mansa Musa died around 1337 CE, though the exact date and circumstances are uncertain. Some sources suggest he ruled for 25 years, while others propose a longer reign. His death marked the end of Mali's golden age, as his successors struggled to maintain the empire's unity and prosperity. Musa was succeeded by his son, Mansa Musa, who ruled briefly and faced challenges from rival factions. Magan's reign was followed by that of Musa's brother, Mansa Suleiman, who maintained stability but could not replicate Musa's grandeur. Over time, internal divisions, succession disputes, and external invasions weakened Mali, paving the way for the rise of the Songhai Empire in the 15th century. Legacy and cultural significance. Historical legacy. Mansa Musa's reign was a high point in the history of the Mali Empire and West Africa. His wealth, piety, and leadership elevated Mali to global prominence, challenging Eurocentric narratives that marginalized African civilizations. The Mali Empire under Musa was a sophisticated state with a complex economy, advanced education system, and vibrant culture, rivaling the great powers of Europe and the Middle East. Musa's Hajj reshaped global perceptions of Africa, introducing the world to the richness of sub-Saharan civilizations. His legacy is preserved in historical texts, such as the accounts of Ibn Bat greetings. It looks like the response was cut off. Let me pick up where it left off and complete this comprehensive biography of Mansa Musa, ensuring it's as detailed and lengthy as possible while covering every aspect of his life, reign, and legacy. Legacy and cultural significance, continued. Historical legacy. Mansa Musa's reign was a pinnacle of the Mali Empire's power and a defining moment in African history. His leadership showcased the sophistication of West African civilizations at a time when Europe was still emerging from the Middle Ages. The Mali Empire under Musa was not only an economic powerhouse but also a cultural and intellectual hub that rivaled the great centers of the Islamic world, such as Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba. Musa's famous Hajj to Mecca in 1324–1325 was a turning point in global history. It introduced the Mali Empire to the wider world, prompting cartographers, chroniclers, and scholars to take note of a region previously overlooked by many outside Africa. The 1375 Catalan Atlas, one of the most detailed maps of the medieval period, immortalized Musa as a symbol of African wealth, depicting him as a crowned king holding a golden orb. This image, widely circulated in Europe, challenged prevailing stereotypes about Africa and highlighted its integral role in the global economy. Preservation in oral and written traditions. Musa's legacy was preserved through a combination of written records and oral traditions. Arabic chroniclers, such as Al-Umari, Ibn Battuta, and Ibn Khaldun, provided detailed accounts of Musa's pilgrimage and the Mali Empire's grandeur. Al-Umari, who interviewed Egyptian officials who met Musa, described him as a ruler of immense wealth and dignity, while Ibn Battuta, who visited Mali in the 1350s, praised the empire's justice and prosperity. In West Africa, griots, oral historians and praise singers, played a crucial role in preserving Musa's story. Griots recited epic narratives, such as the Epic of Sundiata, which celebrated the Keita dynasty's achievements and included tales of Musa's reign. These oral traditions, passed down through generations, blended historical fact with mythological elements, portraying Musa as a semi-divine figure whose wealth and wisdom were gifts from the divine. The interplay between written and oral sources has made it challenging for modern historians to separate fact from legend. For example, stories of Musa's caravan carrying hundreds of tons of gold or causing decades-long inflation in Cairo are likely exaggerated, but they reflect the awe he inspired among contemporaries. Cultural significance in modern times. Today, Mansa Musa is a symbol of African pride and heritage, representing the brilliance of pre-colonial African civilizations. His story counters narratives that portray Africa as a continent without history or achievement before European contact. In Mali and across West Africa, Musa is celebrated as a national hero, with his legacy invoked in literature, music, and education. Globally, Musa's story has gained traction in popular culture. He has been featured in documentaries, books, and articles, often cited as the richest man in history. His inclusion in lists like Time magazine's Most Influential People in historical retrospectives, and educational platforms like TED-Ed reflects growing recognition of his impact. However, some portrayals oversimplify his legacy, focusing solely on his wealth while neglecting his contributions to governance, education, and culture. Musa's story also resonates in discussions of economic inequality and philanthropy. His lavish generosity during the Hajj, while economically disruptive, is often cited as an early example of large-scale charity. Modern philanthropists, such as Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, are sometimes compared to Musa, though his wealth was tied to state resources rather than personal enterprise. Challenges and controversies. Historical ambiguities. Despite his fame, much about Mansa Musa's life remains shrouded in mystery. The lack of contemporary Malian written records means historians rely heavily on foreign accounts, which may reflect biases or exaggerations. For example, Arabic chroniclers, writing for Muslim audiences, emphasized Musa's piety and wealth to align with their cultural values, potentially overlooking aspects of his rule that were less relevant to their readers. The exact dates of Musa's birth, ascension, and death are uncertain, with estimates based on fragmented sources. Similarly, the scale of his Hajj caravan, reportedly 60,000 people and 80 to 100 camel loads of gold, may have been inflated for dramatic effect. Modern historians, such as John Hunwick and Nehemiah Levtsian, have urged caution when interpreting these figures, suggesting they reflect the chroniclers or rather than precise data. Economic disruption. Musa's pilgrimage, while a triumph of diplomacy and faith, had unintended consequences. His massive distribution of gold in Cairo and other cities caused a surge in inflation, as the sudden influx of gold lowered its value. Al-Amari reported that gold prices in Egypt remained depressed for 12 years, affecting merchants and consumers. Some historians argue that Musa's spending was reckless, depleting Mali's treasury and requiring him to borrow money at high interest rates to fund his return journey. However, others view the economic disruption as a calculated display of power. By flooding foreign markets with gold, Musa demonstrated Mali's dominance over the global gold trade, signaling that his empire could afford such extravagance. His loans from Cairene merchants were repaid with interest, suggesting he maintained financial acumen despite his generosity. Religious tensions. Musa's promotion of Islam, while transformative, was not without challenges. While Islam was well established among Mali's elite, many rural communities adhered to indigenous animist beliefs or practiced a syncretic form of Islam. Musa's emphasis on Islamic law and institutions, such as the Sankor Madrasa, occasionally sparked resistance from traditionalists who feared the erosion of local customs. Musa navigated these tensions with pragmatism, allowing religious diversity to coexist within his empire. His ability to balance Islamic and indigenous identities strengthened Mali's social cohesion, but it also foreshadowed later conflicts, as subsequent rulers faced rebellions from non-Muslim subjects. Musa's wealth in context. Comparing historical and modern wealth. Mansa Musa's wealth is often estimated at $400 to $500 billion in modern terms, surpassing contemporary billionaires like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. However, such comparisons are imperfect, as Musa's wealth was not personal but tied to his role as emperor. As steward of Mali's gold and salt mines, he controlled resources that belonged to the state, using them to fund public works, diplomacy, and charity. Unlike modern billionaires, whose wealth is measured in liquid assets or stock valuations, Musa's fortune was rooted in physical commodities and land. His ability to mobilize tens of thousands of people for a transcontinental pilgrimage reflects a level of power and resource control that transcends modern notions of wealth. Sources of wealth. Mali's gold mines, located in regions like Bambuk and Bure, were the backbone of Musa's fortune. These mines produced high-purity gold, which was smelted into bars, dust, or nuggets and traded across the Sahara. Salt, mined in Saharan oases like Tagaza, was equally lucrative, as it was essential for food preservation in tropical climates. Musa also profited from taxes on trade, as Mali's cities served as hubs for trans-Saharan commerce. Merchants paid duties on goods passing through Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen, generating steady revenue. Additionally, Tribute from vassal states and agricultural surplus from the Niger River Valley bolstered the imperial treasury. Wealth as power. Musa's wealth was a tool of governance, used to reinforce his authority and project Mali's power. His patronage of mosques, schools, and scholars elevated his status as a pious ruler, while his gifts to foreign dignitaries secured alliances. By investing in infrastructure, such as roads and irrigation systems, he ensured long-term economic stability, benefiting both the elite and commoners. Musa's personal life. Family and court. Little is known about Musa's personal life, as historical sources focus on his public role. He likely had multiple wives and children, as was customary for Malian rulers. His son, Mansa Musa, succeeded him, suggesting a stable line of succession, though Magan's reign was brief and troubled. Musa's court in Niani was a vibrant center of culture and politics, attended by nobles, scholars, griots, and foreign envoys. The court hosted lavish ceremonies, where griots performed epic poems and musicians played instruments like the kora and balafon. Musa's interactions with his subjects were mediated by advisors, ensuring he remained a revered but distant figure. Personality and leadership style. Chroniclers describe Musa as dignified, pious, and just, with a keen intellect and diplomatic savvy. Ibn Battuta praised his commitment to justice, noting that Mali's courts were fair and accessible to all. Musa's generosity, evident in his hajj and patronage, was tempered by pragmatism, as he maintained strict control over his empire's resources and security. Musa's leadership style blended Islamic ideals with Malian traditions. He presented himself as a servant of Allah, undertaking the hajj and funding religious institutions, while also honoring his ancestors through griot recitations and traditional ceremonies. This duality allowed him to appeal to diverse constituencies, from Muslim scholars to animist farmers. Decline of the Mali Empire. Mansa Musa's death around 1337 CE marked the beginning of Mali's gradual decline. His successors faced numerous challenges, including succession disputes. Rivalries among the Keita dynasty weakened central authority, as competing factions vied for the throne. Economic strain. The costs of Musa's hajj and subsequent military campaigns may have depleted Mali's treasury, limiting resources for future rulers. External threats. The Songhai Empire, once a vassal of Mali, grew in power and eventually overtook Mali in the late 15th century. The Mossi and Tuareg also raided Mali's borders, disrupting trade. Environmental factors. Droughts and shifts in trade routes diminished Mali's economic dominance, as merchants increasingly bypassed Timbuktu for Songhai's capital, Gao. By the 16th century, the Mali Empire had fragmented into smaller states, though its cultural and intellectual legacy endured through Timbuktu's manuscripts and the spread of Malian traditions. Mansa Musa in historical scholarship. Primary sources. Historians rely on a combination of Arabic texts, oral traditions, and archaeological evidence to reconstruct Musa's life. Key written sources include Al-Amari, a 14th-century Syrian scholar who interviewed Cairene officials about Musa's hajj, providing detailed accounts of his wealth and generosity. Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan traveler who visited Mali in 1352 to 1353, offering insights into the empire's governance and society under Musa's successors. Ibn Khaldun, a Tunisian historian who compiled information about Mali from earlier sources, emphasizing its role in the Islamic world. Timbuktu manuscripts. Thousands of texts preserved in Timbuktu's libraries, some dating to Musa's era, document the empire's intellectual life. Griot traditions, recorded in the 19th and 20th centuries, provide a Malian perspective but are less precise, blending history with myth. Archaeological sites, such as the ruins of Niani and the Jingareber Mosque, offer physical evidence of Mali's wealth and architecture. Modern interpretations. Scholars like John Hunwick, Nehemiah Leftsian, and Jibril Tamsir Nian have studied Musa's reign, emphasizing his contributions to trade, education, and diplomacy. They argue that Musa's wealth was not merely ostentatious but a strategic tool for consolidating power and fostering cultural exchange. Recent scholarship has also explored Musa's role in global history. Historians like François-Xavier Fauvel and Toby Green highlight Mali's integration into medieval trade networks, challenging Eurocentric views of the period. Musa's Hajj is seen as a precursor to modern globalization, as it connected West Africa to distant regions through commerce and ideas. Mansa Musa in popular imagination, literature and media. Mansa Musa's story has inspired countless works of literature, film, and art. In Africa, he is a central figure in historical novels and plays, such as Malian author Massa Makan Diabate's Le Lion à l'Arc, which celebrates the Keita dynasty. Globally, Musa has appeared in documentaries by PBS, BBC, and National Geographic, which explore his wealth and legacy. In 2018, the video game Civilization VI included Musa as a playable leader, portraying him as a ruler who excels in trade and religion. Such representations, while popularized, sometimes oversimplify his achievements, focusing on his gold rather than his governance or cultural patronage. Educational impact. Musa's story is increasingly taught in schools and universities, particularly in African and African diaspora studies. Educators use his reign to illustrate the complexity of pre-colonial African societies, countering colonial-era myths of African backwardness. Organizations like UNESCO have supported efforts to preserve Timbuktu's manuscripts, ensuring Musa's intellectual legacy remains accessible. Symbol of African excellence. In the 21st century, Mansa Musa has become a rallying point for Pan-Africanism and Afrocentrism, symbolizing the potential for African self-determination. His image appears in art, fashion, and social media, where he is celebrated as a model of Black excellence. Movements advocating for the repatriation of African artifacts often cite Musa's era as evidence of Africa's historical contributions to global culture. Conclusion. Mansa Musa was far more than the richest man in history. He was a visionary ruler whose reign transformed the Mali Empire into a global powerhouse of wealth, culture, and knowledge. His legendary Hajj to Mecca in 1324–1325 showcased Mali's prosperity and introduced Africa to the world, while his investments in education, architecture, and trade created a legacy that endured for centuries. Musa's story challenges us to rethink the history of wealth, power, and civilization. He governed a vast empire with skill and foresight, balancing Islamic and indigenous traditions to create a cohesive society. His patronage of Timbuktu's scholars and builders laid the foundation for one of the world's great intellectual centers, while his economic policies sustained Mali's dominance in global trade. Today, Mansa Musa remains a towering figure, celebrated for his contributions to African and world history. His life reminds us of the richness of pre-colonial African civilizations and their integral role in shaping the medieval world. As historians continue to uncover new details about his reign, and as his story inspires new generations, Mansa Musa's legacy endures as a testament to the enduring power of leadership, generosity, and vision.